It's a battle in the NFC West as two teams hoping for a run to the playoffs are trying to make a statement. LA Rams going to State Farm Stadium in Glendale to take on the Arizona Cardinals. And there's a spot in the playoffs on the line for those one Arizona Cardinals and maybe, some other things as well. Welcome into Monday Tailgate presented by Rocket Mortgage. I am Shae Cornette. That is Jason Fitz. That is Skubie Mageza. We're going to get you set for the game. And guys, we're going to start right there. Let's start with the matchup that we're going to see because we have a little bit of breaking news heading into this one today. We are not going to see Jalen Ramsey and we're not going to see Tyler Higbee. Both guys are now out due to COVID protocols. And so early on now in this game, the Rams depleted as they get set to take on a very good Cardinals team.
Huge for the matchup. Obviously, anytime you lose Jalen Ramsey. Also, a reminder to everybody that the COVID-19 protocols are going to impact the playoff races. I mean, this is just part of the reality of the modern NFL. So if you're the Rams, this is a little bit of worst case scenario because that news just came down. So you got to think about the way they approached it. They planned to have Jalen Ramsey, right? They planned to have Higbee. To come in this close to the game and find out you don't have him, now all of a sudden everybody's scrambling, everybody's adjusting. Scooby, I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, 36 players went on the COVID list today. That's absolutely mind-blowing to think how much this virus is starting to affect the league, and it is going to play a role. And Jalen Ramsey and DeAndre Hopkins, we were hoping to see that matchup tonight. Now we're not going to see it, so I expect D-Hop to eat.
Yeah, and we're going to have a lot more on this later on in the show.
There's going to be snacks?
Yeah.
Not that kind of eat.
D-Hop snacks, not Scooby snacks.
Yeah, we'll have a lot more of this later on in the show, but I just think this is huge for that Rams defense. I mean, Jalen Ramsey is a leader on that defense. He's a talker on that defense. Obviously, when you're the opposition, meaning the Arizona Cardinals, you need to know where he is at all times. Now that frees up a little bit of space if you're the offense of the Arizona Cardinals. All right, it is Monday, and so usually people call this Overreaction Monday. We call it a lot of things. Here on Monday Tailgate, we call it Case of the Mondays because there's a lot of people, places, things that are in this case.
Is this a case?
A case of Mondays, correct.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you, Shelby, yeah.
A case
of the
Mondays.
You
Not heavy-handed at all.
And if you haven't seen The Office, perhaps Google that clip of Case of the Mondays because this is where we get this brilliant idea from. And so we're going to pull out perhaps these cases of Mondays, and we're going to talk about them. And so, Fitzy, why don't you go first? Yeah, who does?
Look, I'm just going to go first.
Who does have a case of the Mondays?
And I can't believe that I pulled this card out first.
Oh, the Raiders. You want to talk about it after that dismantling by the Chiefs?
Look, you might as well just rip the Band-Aid off. The hardest part about it isn't that the Raiders got their asses kicked by the Chiefs. It isn't even that the Raiders gave the Chiefs, for the second time this season, the least amount of too-high defense that they've seen all year. And that's part of why they got destroyed. It isn't even dancing on the field beforehand because, frankly, I could dance in Mike Golick Jr.'s kitchen before I inform him I'm going to kick his butt. The better athlete's still going to win. I got no problem with all of that. But the real moment here is, I can tell you this. I've talked to people around the team. I've talked to people I trust in the organization. I've talked to people that cover the organization. This is the first day that everybody has said total reset. And that is the gut punch. When you talk about GM, coach, and I believe even quarterback are all going to be gone at this point. Total reset hits the organization. And that's a unique challenge in Las Vegas because you have a team that's starting to get roots, trying to get roots in a new city. You have a team that's full of star power in that city. Like Vegas is known for stars. Now you're going to completely rebuild. You're talking home runs. I think Mike Mayock, obviously we knew the coaching was going to be gone, but I think Derek Carr's time came to an end with that loss. Not because I'm anti-Derek Carr, but because they're going to press complete reset.
That's a bad case of Mondays.
Yeah, that is very, very
the bad case of the Mondays.
He has so much money on his contract, though. That's
it's 1 year left, $25 million.
Oh, $25 million.
1 year, $25 million. He's tradable. That's the big thing. That contract's tradable. So
there's going to be teams that kind of need a quarterback like that going into next year.
Kind of need? I would take him in a minute in Chicago.
You don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at it saying, 31-year-old Derek Carr, I'd give up draft equity for him. So I think the Raiders are suddenly going to put themselves in, hopefully, in their case, into the Russell Wilson sweepstakes. They're going to need a star.
Yeah,
but that whole reset, I love Derek Carr. That whole reset happened starting yesterday.
Wow. Okay. That would definitely be a case of the Mondays. Can I go next?
Oh,
Are you going to keep going?
I was just going to pick it.
He was about to go crazy.
I'm going to go because I have feelings. I have some feelings. I have feelings about Cam Newton and what is going on with the Carolina Panthers. This is a case of the Mondays, the Sundays, the Saturdays, and all of the above. Because what is going on in Carolina, to me, is reckless at this point. What you're doing with the quarterback position, Cam Newton, P.J. Walker, Sam Darnold, you can go on down the list.
Go ahead and rotate.
Reckless. Look, Cam Newton isn't great. No, he didn't come in and be the savior that he was supposed to be. And I think that first home game when he came back, not on the road at Arizona, but that first home game when you had all the hoopla surrounding it, I was like, if you can't win this one, and they didn't against the Washington football team, that was a wrap. But here's the problem I have with Matt Rule. You benched Cam Newton twice in this game. And at one point, it was in the second quarter, 5 minutes before halftime, and you were only down 10. That is something you can overcome. Had he thrown the ball to the other team twice? Sure. Twice, not 5 times. And then you flip-flop between him and P.J. Walker. How are you supposed to establish any sort of momentum if you're Cam Newton and you are still very new to this offense? What is going on there? They have absolutely no idea what they're doing with the quarterback position, and it's a problem.
I'll say, you said establish momentum. I'll say establish culture. I had the chance to talk to Matt Rule at Baylor a couple of years ago at Game Day, and he talked so much about, I don't care about the result, I care about establishing culture, and the result will come. What's been established at Carolina? They have no identity. They have no idea who they are. They have no culture that you can look at and say palpably, this is that team. I think Matt Rule has become a fail for the Panthers.
The scary thing about it is they're still in the playoff hunt. So they could end up getting in the playoffs, and then we got to deal with them playing in there. I don't want any piece of the Panthers. I'd like to see them continue moving. Now it's my turn.
Like if Christian McCaffrey's not on the field, they don't know what they're doing. I don't understand.
Case of the Mondays, and this one, I love to do it to y'all. Buffalo Bills losing consecutive games for the first time since last season when they were 5-6, and Josh Allen leaving that game in a walking boot. First of all, you're a one-trick pony, Buffalo Bills. You run, pass, and just put everything on Josh Allen's back. Not one running back had a carry in the first half against Tampa Bay.
That's terrible.
You got to have a running game in order to establish some type of success in the NFL. And as you see, they lose to Tom Brady 33-27. This was almost a must-win game for them because now they're not just in trouble of losing that AFC East title. They're in trouble of missing the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy thought to think because everyone had the Bills as one of the top teams in the NFL. And this is a bad case of the Mondays because now you're realizing that piece of cake that you were about to have is no more because you ain't getting nothing.
Yeah, you're right. Like, it's a case of the Mondays because if you're a Bills fan, you realize your team's just not good. Like, to your point, I was stunned in the second half. They were able to move the ball. They were able to throw the ball. They got some stuff done against Tampa Bay. But the fact that this team cannot run the football, and you can't win playoff football games if you can't run.
In Buffalo.
Yeah.
In Buffalo, too. Can we just talk about where they even play football? The bar is so low now. Like, this had Super Bowl aspirations, did the Buffalo Bills, and now we're talking about can they just win the AFC East? Like, that's how low the bar has dropped, and they might fully miss the playoffs. It's not good for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
Big case of the Monday.
If Josh Allen doesn't play at an MVP level, who knows what they can do.
I'm dipping back into the case because this just hits too close to home for you. Your husband, big Bengals fan.
Yep, he does.
How we feeling about this one?
How was he feeling this morning?
He was not feeling good because he knew. So right before that last catch by George Kittle, there was a missed interception. I'm forgetting who the player was that missed the interception, and he threw his arms up. My husband did from Cincinnati, won Jordan Cornette, and said, this is the most Bengals way we're ever going to lose. And sure enough, that is how they lost, on a missed, basically, interception. They had the gift that Robbie Gould missed the field goal, and then here they were still losing that game. And now this drops them almost, a 30% chance of making the playoffs after that loss in a division in the AFC North where nobody wants to win. Nobody wants to be the king of the AFC North.
It is a battle in the AFC North because all those teams are right
now. Is it a battle, though?
It is a battle of people who don't have much to battle with.
It's like one of those cooking shows that's like all the chefs that can't cook. That's what we're seeing right now. Like, because all of these teams,
the less worse. You know
I had high expectations for the Bengals this year. And, Zach Taylor, coach of the Bengals, I've questioned his play calling some this year. It got better at the beginning of the season. I don't think it's better now. I think there are real questions that need to be answered.
We got one more.
You mentioned the division. Case of the Mondays.
Okay, but see, this I don't think is fair. I don't know that that's fair.
Well, case of the Mondays because
they're feeling sad. Okay,
it's still a bad case of the Monday.
Right.
Because
it's a different kind of case.
Exactly.
Of the
you have Lamar Jackson go down, and you got to feel for the Ravens. How many injuries is this team going to have? They got their cornerbacks basically dismantled last week, and now they have Lamar Jackson go down. And can we give a little shout out to Tyler Huntley for putting on that type of performance and almost bringing them back? Once they recovered that onside kick, I was like, oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God.
I thought
the Browns are going to brown.
But that's 2 times this year Tyler Huntley's come in and played well. So I got to give Huntley a lot of credit. my heart breaks for the Ravens because they have overcome more in the injury world than anybody could have imagined. I think Lamar's having an MVP year. So this is just.
At some point, it's got to catch up to them, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
at some point, these injuries have
You
to
need
come.
players to play.
Yeah, and so for me, that's what I mean. Like, we're complaining basically about everybody else, and this one is kind of out of their control. I feel bad.
I feel bad for y'all, man.
For the Baltimore Ravens because I mean, John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson, they deserve a different kind of trophy this year, just for what they've already put on the field. Heading into this season, they didn't even have a running backs room, and they're still figuring it out. So kudos, I think, to you. A different kind of case of the Mondays for the Baltimore Ravens. We're also having a different kind of case of the Mondays because we don't get to see the Manning brothers tonight on the Manning cast, which is so unfortunate. However, here's a little sneak peek of what you will see come January.
Join Peyton and Eli on ESPN2 as they welcome special guests and break down the game as only they can.
I enjoyed much more the ones I played against Peyton and Eli.
I enjoyed all our games, Tom.
Monday Night Football with Peyton and Eli returns January 3rd on ESPN2.
So apparently the kids these days are going to things called PowerPoint parties. There's more to the world out there, guys. But nonetheless, this is a thing where you go and you present whatever topic you want to said party. And so this gave us a good opportunity to perhaps do this.
Shae,
Fitz,
does this mean I can finally say ain't no party like a PowerPoint party because a PowerPoint party don't stop?
The fact that you said that without stuttering gives you mad props. And yes, you can definitely say that. So this gives us a great opportunity to perhaps call one Urban Meyer, the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the actual loser in this entire situation that is going on in Jacksonville, where he was supposedly calling his assistant coaches the losers. But anyways, I digress. And the reason number one would be in my PowerPoint slide presentation why Urban Meyer is the ultimate loser is because, yes, here we go, I probably wouldn't use that font, but nonetheless, is because of the dysfunction. Do you guys remember back when the draft was about to start that Trevor Lawrence maybe shouldn't go to the draft? He should maybe stay at Clemson because they wanted to avoid the dysfunction that is the Jets. Well, now look at what's happening with the Jaguars. I would argue that this is further dysfunction than what actually is going on in New York. It's constant, it seems like there.
I love, too, your first bullet point told his staff he's a winner and that the rest of them are losers. They're all on the same staff together, so they are communally losers, are they not at this point?
And didn't he choose this staff, by the way?
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't work out in the beginning when he saw him try to bring in that strength and conditioning coach who didn't leave Ohio State. And now you got a quarterback, your first overall draft pick, being raised in this dysfunctional program.
Yeah, a bunch of losers he hired, so good job by you.
It's complete dysfunction, and dysfunction actually leads me to my next bullet point, which would be distrust. Because the dysfunction is ultimately rooted in distrust. You have him not trusting his coaching staff. Maybe there's a leak somewhere in the building. Supposedly, he's dancing at the bars after a loss. Actually, not supposedly. We saw the video evidence of this.
Wait. We just know that he was at the bar. Maybe he has like a magnetic force field that drew her back to his lap. We don't know.
Maybe. And he's benching star players, supposedly, and there's distrust there. Speaking of, I actually just saw this quote from Demetrius Harvey. He says, Jaguars head coach was asked about Andre Sisco, who they took in the third round in this last draft, about him not playing more. And he said, Urban Meyer did, Sisco is playing a little bit more, I believe. I don't have his numbers in front of me. Let me tell you how many defensive snaps Sisco played this weekend. 0. He doesn't even know what's going on. There's distrust between his players and him, and it's a big old mess. And also, back to that Trevor Lawrence comments that you made, Skubie, earlier. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions over this weekend. Do you think he's trusting his head coach to further his development and make him a better NFL quarterback at this point?
Ooh, and when you think about that, those third interceptions, that is tied for the second most in Jaguars history. And all those interceptions were against a standard rush, which, by the way, is the most this season by any quarterback. So there's a lot of distrust and things going on within that program. And then we go back towards last week, James Robinson, who I keep up with quite well because he's on my fantasy team. And Urban Meyer, you're ruining my fantasy team. But James Robinson hurt at the end of the game. Bad knee injury. They're getting blown out. And he tells the guy to go back in the game to play some more. Clearly, the players don't believe that the coaches care about the health.
I also think, though, it's interesting because he talks about trust so much. And remember, when he was an analyst on TV, he said one of the things you have to create great culture is great trust, which is the very thing he hasn't done. What else is on your PowerPoint, Shae?
The last thing on my PowerPoint here, guys, would be disastrous, because that's what this season has been. Since he has become the head coach in Jacksonville, it has been absolutely disastrous. And I am not going to sit up here and pretend like I saw this coming. I absolutely did not. I thought this was a good fit. They got the #1 pick in the draft. They went out and drafted Trevor Etienne, someone who also has a trust factor with their quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. And then all of a sudden, here we are, 2-11, tied for the second worst record in the NFL. And then over the weekend, they were shut out, and that hadn't happened in 199 games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're making history for how bad they are this season. It's a disaster.
Whatever the culture problem is, whatever the field problems are, whatever the problems are for the Jags, were created by Urban Meyer. Let's just remember that. Like, he creates all of it. I like your PowerPoint presentation.
And it just keeps on getting higher and higher. I mean, they only had 8 rushing yards in their game this week. That is the lowest that they've ever had. This whole team is going down the drain right now.
So I like that you were like alliterative, Shae. I like that you did dysfunction, distrust, and disastrous. I think you left one D off, though. Like, maybe it's possible that Urban just acts like a
Okay, you said it, not me. So I guess we could just tie a bow on it with that, because in conclusion, maybe that's just what it is, all in all. He's got all these bad things coming his way there in Jacksonville. And honestly, it doesn't look like it's going in the right direction for the remainder of the season. Now, the one question that remains is, will he return in Jacksonville next season? That we'll find out. We'll also find out what Phil Murphy is doing, because he always is lit before the games with the crowd and the tailgaters. Let's check in on one Phil Murphy. Phil?
Shae, Fitz, Skubie, what's good? I'm here outside State Farm Stadium. Guys, this game has a playoff feel. And the thing is, both of these teams are probably going to be in the playoffs. But this game could go a very long way toward deciding the NFC West. The Cardinals come in with a 2-game lead, and with a win today, they'd have a 3-game lead in the division and all the advantage in the world in the wild card. But Rams may be playing with some confidence coming off a win over the Jaguars. The Rams are 8-1 this season when they score more than 25 points. But Kyler Murray and this Cardinals team, they are the decided favorites here. And with the win today, the Cardinals can be the first team in the NFL to punch a ticket officially to the playoffs. Should be a fun one on Monday Night Football.
Look at that. We're fist bumping while we start. Why? Because it's Fitz Committee time.
It's that time,
I have my own committee. All right, Scooby, you ready for this?
Oh, yeah, let's do this.
Okay, so, despite the joyful sweater, I have the not-so-joyful job of informing some teams this week they didn't make the final 6. This is what we do for anyone that's not familiar. 13 different experts. Some work for ESPN, some don't. One's a former NFL head coach that remains anonymous. They all vote on their top 6. We compile the numbers. And I'm telling you, Scooby, last week I thought it was the closest ever. This week, topped it. I had to wait all the way to the last second to get the last committee member to vote.
Get your votes in.
It was a 1-point vote. That's what it came down to. Now, you see the top 6 here as they stand. Number 6, the Tennessee Titans finally get their way back into this ranking.
The Titans at 6.
At 5, your New England Patriots. At 4, the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they played yesterday. Nobody can prove otherwise. Number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming off an up-and-down game against the Bills. At 2, the Cardinals that we'll see tonight. At number 1, the Green Bay Packers. Now, again, it was a 1-point decision between the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. The Buccaneers were pretty easily in 3rd. The Chiefs and Patriots also came down to 1 vote. So those first 5 are really compactly packed in there.
The thing about the top 3 is I like where they have them. And truthfully, you could put either one of those top 3 teams at 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. And I only say this because those teams are teams we know are good, and we know that their ceiling is something that reaches Super Bowl type level performance, because they've balled out this season. What we saw with Aaron Rodgers last night was ridiculous. Those throws with Devontae Adams, the Buccaneers coming back with Tom Brady throwing that touchdown pass in overtime. Kyler Murray still playing at an MVP level. I like the top 3.
Yeah, I'm out on some of this. And by the way, I didn't have a vote. That's one thing to stress. I don't vote. But the blatant disrespect. I mean, the Cardinals, right? Yeah, Tom doing Tom things. That's a team that went out to a huge lead, almost choked on that lead, and then got it back. Now, why are we talking about the Buccaneers that way? But then when we look at the Dallas Cowboys, who didn't even make this list, we sit there and say, well, yeah, but the Cowboys barely hung on to beat the Washington football team. Like, we can't have it both ways.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, they're not a one-trick pony type of team. They got the 3rd-ranked passing offense, and they got the 4th best defense in the entire NFL. So they can do it on both sides of the ball. Now, when I look at your your list, I like where we have it, but why are the Titans at 6? The two teams that we also need to look at putting in here are either the San Francisco 49ers or the Chargers. And I think the San Francisco 49ers are really the team that you want to put in there, because when it comes down to the playoffs, what can you do? Can you run the ball? And can you play defense? And George Kittle, he's a bad man. He's come out and he's proved that he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL with this performance. And then Jimmy G, did you think he could do that? Did you think?
Jimmy G, we talked about last week, like he's playing lights out since week 8, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But when you start talking about those things, you talk about defense. I mean, I know everybody's tired of hearing about him, but again, the Cowboys, like right now, Parsons is playing like the defensive player of the year, not the rookie of the year, the defensive player of the year, no matter where you put him. But that defense is great.
Dak Prescott is the thing that I'm looking at over here. Like, what's going on? It seems like his leg or his whatever is some type of injury is ailing him more than he might be saying, because he just had his worst passer rating of the entire year. It was a 9.9 QBR in this game. If he's going to be playing like that, I got to get them the heck out of there. We got to throw in Justin Herbert, because we knew what he was doing with the Chargers today. Well, I mean, yesterday was absolutely ridiculous, especially those throws. He had 7 completions that were down the field to 7 different receivers on third down. He was just tearing them up on third down.
This is the only argument I make, though, for the Cowboys. Like, at some point, Pollard being out, they're not running the football well. They need to run the football well. When they do, it changes their offense. That's part of why I'm out on the Titans. As much as I love the concept of the Titans, by the way, like, we have to look at these teams for who they are today. If Derrick Henry comes back healthy in the playoffs, we're having a much different conversation. Like, if Derrick Henry comes back into the conversation for the Titans, I'd put him ahead of the Patriots. I think they have the chance to be the second best team in the AFC. I think this whole, like, again, if I were making this list, I'm putting the Chiefs in at number 3. They have found their mojo.
The Chiefs really, see, here's the thing about the Chiefs, though. We're looking at them against the Raiders. They have a plus 66 point differential when they go against your Raiders. It's because the Raiders somehow haven't figured out the thing that everybody does in the NFL, too high against Patrick Mahomes.
But even aside, they kicked the you-know-what out of the Raiders. But aside from that, it's like they took a second to get warmed up, and now they got their mojo. So it's like, yeah, it took a second. I don't know why I felt like I had to shimmy, but it took. Now, you're the Patriots fan. I mean, do you feel like the Patriots are being disrespected? Right now, AFC, Kansas City, Patriots, neutral field, who you got?
Right now, I got the Patriots.
Okay, so you would be putting the Patriots.
I got the Patriots.
And I'm putting them over there. I mean,
you see, here's the thing. We're looking at recency bias, because what we saw the Patriots do, which was not sexy against the Bills, they ran the ball the whole entire time. And then we got Kansas City putting up another 40-burger on the Raiders. But still, at the end of the day, I want the team that can run the ball better, and that's why I'm sticking with the Patriots. Run the ball in the playoffs.
The one thing I won't do is disrespect the committee, even though I don't always agree with them. This was their top 6. The one thing we'll try and do is hold them accountable. We'll see where these Titans end up by the end of the year. One thing I do know is the Cardinals have a chance to make a statement for why they belong at number 1 tonight, Monday Night Football. Let's see what the Monday Night Football crew thinks of this matchup. Gracie, what you got?
Great NFC West matchup, Fitz. It's going to be Kyler Murray against this Rams defense, which I think will determine the outcome of this one. In the first meeting back in October, Kyler Murray went off. Getting out of the pocket, scrambling, his legs were a factor. The Rams defense was not ready for it. They were able to convert third downs because of it, over 61% of the time. That kept them on the field and allowed them to score 37 points. For the Rams to have a chance, they're going to have to contain Kyler Murray. Maybe they use Jalen Ramsey in a hybrid role off the edge, but you got to get some more pressure on him, keep him in the pocket, along with Von Miller and Aaron Donald. First time for those guys to be able to rush against Kyler Murray. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you, Brian. And a quick note, Brian taped this for us earlier, and that was before we got the news that Jalen Ramsey will not be playing in tonight's matchup due to COVID protocols. And so, unfortunately, he can't be in a hybrid role, but we will talk more about that in a little bit, because it is time for Competitive Edge. And who has the Competitive Edge? Presented by Rocket Mortgage. And so before we look ahead, let's look back over the weekend. And so, Skubie, or Fitz rather, yesterday when you look back, who is the competitive edge coming out of Sunday? It
goes back to what I just talked to Skubie about. I think the Chiefs, and part of this, like, look, the last time the Chiefs lost a game, I still had Halloween decorations up. Now I'm in a Fa-la-la-la-llama sweater, right? Like, this has been a process for them. But the biggest thing is everything's gotten easy in that process. The Raiders had more turnovers than Mahomes had incompletions yesterday. When you think about that and you think about a defense that is absolutely playing lights out, what you have is a team that now, I listened to Field Yates say, should we be defining the Chiefs more for who they are defensively? Like, that tells me how well their defense is playing. On top of the fact that Mahomes has figured out how to be patient and is absolutely crushing everybody. The Chiefs, to me, look like they're headed to the Super Bowl. I think they definitely have the competitive edge.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it. Offense, defense, running the ball through the air. They can do it all. And then, of course, Andy Reid, one of the best coaches in the NFL. Okay, so that's looking back. Let's look ahead now. We've got tonight's matchup between the Rams and the Cardinals. And so I want to know who has the competitive edge in tonight's matchup between these two teams.
Oh, it's got to be the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray has been playing at an MVP level, as we've talked about. And when you talk about the defense that he's going to be going against, he's going against a Rams defense that plays zone at the second highest rate in the NFL. You know who has the best QBR against zone in the NFL? Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray already tore them up, as you heard Brian talk to us about it in the preview. And then on top of that, we mentioned Jalen Ramsey's not going to be in this game. You know who Jalen Ramsey usually follows all the time? DeAndre Hopkins. Those two have the most matchups in the NFL in terms of cornerback and wide receiver. No other quarterback and wide receiver has gone against each other more than DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey. But when he goes against anybody else on that team, DeAndre Hopkins tears them up. So they have the competitive edge going in this game with a healthier D-Hop and a healthier Kyler Murray.
Okay, so the Cardinals have the competitive edge tonight. That has been your competitive edge presented by Rocket Mortgage. And so now let's move ahead to tonight's matchup and what we are going to see tonight. It's the Rams, it's the Cardinals. Cardinals are looking for the sweep for the first time since 2014 against the Rams. And guys, earlier we talked about this, but you got to revisit it. We just found out you're not going to have Jalen Ramsey and you're not going to have Tyler Higbee. Two guys on both sides of the ball that means something to this Rams team. And again, they are a team that have not beaten a team above 500 since weeks 2 and 3. Like, it's been a minute since they've beaten a really good team. Tonight is a big opportunity for them.
And go back to what Skubie was just talking about with Jalen Ramsey and all the way back to what Greasy said. There was the opportunity to use Ramsey in a hybrid role. You lose that now. That means you're losing the opportunity to disguise what you're doing. And that's one of the biggest parts of this. I think Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury have gotten more in sync than any of us, I think, predicted. And when you start talking about the control of the offense, their ability to go in and look and see what's coming and then veer towards it, I really feel like the absence of Jalen Ramsey is going to make it more predictable for what they're trying to set up to do defensively. That, Scooby, to me, gives Kyler Murray a huge pre-snap advantage. You give Kyler Murray a pre-snap advantage in dissecting what he's seeing, he's going to take advantage of it.
And get this, Kyler Murray has a 72.7 completion percentage this season, which is on pace to be the third highest in NFL history. So he's at a historic pace already. And then we get on the defensive side. What can the Cardinals do defensively? Well, that Cardinals team has 32 sacks, tied for 4th in the NFL. And he's going against Matthew Stafford, who is 0-17 in his career against teams that are 5+ games over 500, the worst in the Super Bowl era.
I hate to say this about Matthew Stafford because I like the guy. And in the beginning of the year, I thought maybe this year was going to be different for him. But I'm sorry. He's proven to be who we thought he was. Yeah. Matthew Stafford has never won a playoff game. Matthew Stafford has constantly had a roller coaster season. It doesn't matter if he's Detroit or now in LA. Until he beats a team like the Cardinals in December, I'm going to be not proven otherwise.
Well, and let me pile on to that. Like, where's the pressure on Sean McVay? Like, when we talk about the playoffs, the Rams went all in. They mortgaged their entire future to be great this year and for the next couple, they hope. But I'm looking at Sean McVay, the wonder coach that's supposed to have it all figured out, and saying, hey, you're supposed to be such a great coach that when you finally got your quarterback, you can make the most of it. Where is that? Like, we don't get to turn around and say it was all Goff's fault. Now it's all Stafford's fault. Like, at some point, I got to look at McVay.
It's not even just Stafford. I mean, look, they added Von Miller. They added Odell Beckham Jr. This is definitely a win-now situation. You're seeing the playoff standings there. And with the win tonight for the Arizona Cardinals, they could be the first team to punch their ticket into the playoffs. They don't need help from anyone else. No one has to lose, nothing like that. And so the Arizona Cardinals have a different kind of pressure, I feel like, on them tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this Rams team is 2-4 against teams under 500. That's including 4 straight losses. And then 6-0 versus teams under 500. I meant above 500. 2-4 versus teams above 500, 4 straight losses. 6-0 versus teams under 500. So to perform against a high caliber team is something that they haven't done this year. And if they get this win, which is why they need to get this win, it kind of puts their season back on track. But I don't see it happening.
Yeah, the Cardinals need this win because they need home field. That's what this comes down to. I mean, I think the Cardinals have a huge opportunity here.
Quickly, picks. Let's do it. I'm taking the Cardinals.
I'm taking the Cardinals.
Cardinals.
Cardinals. Clean sweep. We're all going Cardinals. Perhaps it's a little bit of
It looks so cute in the little graphic, too.
I know it does. It just looks like a happy little bird, doesn't it? So Cardinals
Me
across
after too
the
many
board,
cookies.
and if that does happen, as we said, they are going to the playoffs. It's a big opportunity for the Cardinals to get a clean sweep of the Rams, since they've already played them one time this season. As for the Rams, can they get back on track? We will find out in just moments. It's going down in Glendale, rather. NFC West battle, and we can't wait for it. For Skubie and Fitz, my name is Shae. Enjoy the game, everyone. We'll see you next time. This has been Monday Tailgate, presented by Rocket Mortgage.